India just got slapped with one of the harshest trade punishments America has ever dished out, and honestly, it's been a long time coming. Donald Trump just signed an executive order throwing an extra 25% tariff on Indian imports, pushing the total up to a jaw-dropping 50%. And look, even former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson thinks Trump is doing the right thing. That's not a typo. Half of the value of every Indian product heading into the US will now be eaten up by tariffs. And while everyone's losing their minds over how unfair this is, let's be real. India's been playing both sides for years, and now it's paying the price. I've said this many times, play both sides, and you'll eventually end up with nothing. For the longest time, India has loved to wear the shiny badge of the world's largest democracy, cozying up to Washington whenever it suits them, selling the story that they're a natural partner for the West. But when it comes to money and energy, they're just as happy buying sanctioned Russian oil and rubbing elbows with China under the BRICS banner. It's like they want to eat at every table, call themselves a responsible global power, even a superpower as some delusional people like to call it, yet break bread with regimes the West is actively trying to isolate. You can't keep pretending to be the clean-cut democratic alternative while fueling Putin's war machine. So yes, while Trump's move feels brutal, you could argue that India's double game made this inevitable. Here's what actually went down. Today, Trump signed the executive order saying Indian imports are getting an extra 25% slapped on them because India keeps buying Russian oil. This isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's a hammer. The total tariff is now 50%, one of the highest rates the US has ever hit a trading partner with. The new rule kicks in on August 27th, giving India just 3 weeks to sweat it out. Delhi's foreign ministry called the decision unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable, claiming they're only buying Russian oil to protect their national interests, just like plenty of other countries. But Trump didn't care. He flat out said India doesn't care how many people in Ukraine are being killed, and that he's willing to go even harder if needed. There's even talk of him hitting 100% tariffs on other Russian oil buyers by the end of the week, and I hope nobody buries their heads in the sand. These tariffs are going to hurt India badly. Despite all the rising power talk, India's economy is still fragile. The average person there earns a fraction of what Americans or Europeans do, even a fraction of what Russians and Chinese do. The country's infrastructure is decades behind China's, their only comparable nation when looking at population. Poverty rates are staggering, 80% according to the World Bank. And now, with a 50% tariff on their exports to the US, their largest trading partner experts are predicting a 40 to 50% cut in goods heading stateside. That's a massive blow to Indian businesses already scraping by. This isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. This means factory closures, lost jobs, and even more economic pressure on ordinary Indians who had no say in their government's foreign policy games. It's a mess, plain and simple. Modi only has himself to blame for this. Getting on the first flight to Washington after Trump's inauguration to kiss the proverbial ring, yet getting massive tariffs a few months later for playing both sides. But before you think this is just America being a saintly defender of Ukraine, don't fall for that fairy tale either. Trump is not some moral crusader here. This is political muscle flexing at its finest, bullying tactics dressed up as foreign policy. The US is happy to keep buying and selling Russian goods when it suits their needs. Last year, they traded about $3.5 billion with Russia despite all the big talk about sanctions. But when India does the same thing, suddenly it's a threat to national security? Please. This isn't about principles, it's about power and leverage. Tariffs like these are Trump's favorite weapon, not just against rivals, but against so-called allies too. It's his way of saying, play by my rules or pay the price. It's pure hypocrisy, which makes me shake my head at both India and the US. Remember Kissinger's words, to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be America's friend is fatal. And this is exactly why more and more countries are quietly turning to China for trade and investment instead. Love or hate Beijing, you can't deny one thing, they play the long game. While democracies like the US keep lurching from one president's tantrum to the next, changing policies every 4 years like a weather vane, China offers consistency for decades to come. Their deals are planned decades ahead. Their infrastructure investments aren't suddenly pulled because of election year politics, and they don't slap 50% tariffs on you just to prove a point. When you're a developing country trying to build railways, ports, and factories, that kind of stability looks a lot more attractive than dealing with Washington's mood swings or India's fence-sitting diplomacy. India's leadership has been trying to have it both ways for too long. They boast about being a partner of the US, attend Western summits, talk big about being a counterweight to China. Yet they're a key member of BRICS, buying Russian oil on the cheap, hosting military exercises with Moscow, and keeping close ties with Beijing when it suits them. That two-faced approach was always going to catch up with them. You can't sell yourself as a Western-friendly democracy while bankrolling Russia's war economy and cozying up to China on the side. Now Trump's given them a very expensive wake-up call, one that could cost Indian exporters billions of dollars. That being said, America's approach isn't winning hearts either. These tariffs won't magically make India stop buying Russian oil. They'll just push Delhi to trade more with Moscow and Beijing instead. And when Trump threatens to slap 100% tariffs on any other country daring to buy Russian energy, it doesn't scare nations into submission. It makes them start looking elsewhere for partners who won't weaponize trade deals overnight. That's why you're seeing a slow but steady shift toward China's orbit. It's not because everyone loves Beijing's politics, it's because they know China won't burn the house down every time there's a disagreement. They build, they invest, they plan decades ahead while the US throws tantrums and India flip-flops trying to please everyone. The sad part? Ordinary people will suffer the most. Indian workers will lose jobs. Large numbers of them are already straggling the poverty line. American consumers will pay more for imported goods, and none of this will bring peace to Ukraine or stop Russia from selling oil. It'll just shuffle who buys it. Meanwhile, Trump gets to look tough on TV, and India's leaders keep trying to walk their impossible tightrope between East and West. Nobody wins except the politicians. This whole mess shows the real cracks in the global order. Countries like India try to hedge bets instead of taking a stand. If they were truly a superpower, they'd be able to stand on their own 2 feet, but they aren't, so they can't. The US uses economic weapons not just against enemies, but against friends. And China, quietly watching from the sidelines, keeps making deals that look better and better to a lot of nations fed up with Western drama. If India and the US keep butting heads like this, don't be surprised if more of the developing world decides that working with China, for all its flaws, is simply the safer, smarter bet. If you found this breakdown useful, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.